Everyone, welcome to the thrilling 14th episode of Season 2 for the Sustainable Warwick's Zoom Garden Plot.
Woohoo!
Come on. On tonight's agenda, I'm moving things around a little bit because we had a couple people here with kind of big questions, and I wasn't sure if they were able to stay the whole time. So I put the question and answer in front, and then we have garden updates from Leslie and Bill, and I've got a few pictures. I don't really have a garden update. I don't have gardens like Bill and Leslie do, but I've got some interesting pictures to share, and then we have some announcements. So the first questions come from Marie at the Florida Public Library. And Marie, I'm going to turn the floor over to you. Go ahead.
Well, we did not do any pruning last year, and the butterfly bushes had always been trimmed because they just kind of get out of hand. And we didn't remember, the person who did it does not work there anymore. So we have no idea what time of year is best, and how much do you take off when you trim a butterfly bush. So
I've been trimming mine back to just about a foot tall. I do it in the spring, and they've come back beautifully, and I've had the same bushes for about 15 years now. And
yeah,
I just whack them down, and they grow back very quickly, and each year they're more full and have more flowers.
Yeah, we've had a lot of flowers this year, but the problem if we wait till the spring is with the snow, it will make the bush fall over and it will be in the way for the delivery van. So we have to do something. Is it okay to trim it in the fall?
Oh, I never did, but I never found that the snow made them fall over.
Oh, they're all over. They're all fall. They're very, very floppy right now.
Oh.
I think you can trim them now. I would trim them after they lose their leaves.
Okay.
Well, I would do it as late as you can, but before the snow flies.
Okay.
That would be the compromise.
And then the other question, we have 3 small boxwoods that are just planted in the wrong place, and they do need to be moved. And what time of year, fall or spring?
Well,
Go ahead.
No, I defer to you. I was waiting. If nobody had anything to say, I could say something, but Bill, please.
The general recommendation is that it's a good time to transplant things in the fall.
Okay.
You need to do them now, I think, so they have a chance to set their roots before it gets too cold. So I think this might be an ideal time to move them.
Just have to make sure they get enough water
Yeah.
while they're settling in. But yeah, I think that's fine. There, and boxwoods are pretty tough.
Yes, it's just that where they're planted now, they're right up against the building, and they're not going to. Although they're small, they're just not going to survive there. So we have a space where we took out. I don't even know what it was, but it died. So we figured we have a nice space where they can go and flourish. So we're moving.
Go ahead.
Very good.
No, the only other question we had was one of our planters that is on the deck of the library. We have 2 planters on either end of the deck that are part of the deck. They're quite deep. They're about 2 feet deep, 3 feet deep, but there is some Russian sage that's in there that is just totally outgrowing. And is it best just to cut it back or to get rid of it and start over? What do you do?
You can cut it back as much as you want.
Okay, great.
It always comes back, and it does do that every year. It does. Yeah, I would say you can cut it back as much as you want, but it will keep doing that. So if you want to have something in there will stay smaller, you could do that too.
All right, thank you. And I had said to Michael, I hate to ask this, but if anybody wanted to help us out, we would greatly appreciate some manpower. But that is, you know, I understand that, you know, you are already busy with your own gardens, but if anybody feels that they would like to come over and help, that would be great. And other than that, we thank you for your advice, because that's, we had really no idea. And short of hiring a landscaper for these, we just can't do it. So we'll attack it ourselves.
Very good. And I see there's an extra note in the chat there.
Extra from Elizabeth. Oh, Elizabeth.
So, yeah, I guess Elizabeth, yeah, could you talk, or you said you're having some kind of problems?
Yeah, I was having some
Oh,
connectivity
okay.
issues before, and I didn't want to interject. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Maybe
Yes.
not. Oh, you can.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, I was just noting that I was told that I shouldn't trim back our butterfly bush in the fall because it would leave it susceptible to winter damage. I don't know if that's true or not, but I just was wondering in the chat whether if you need to trim it for purposes of, you know, it not blocking whatever driveway, if there's some way you might want to look into to, you know, not damage the plant for next year.
Okay, thank you.
Can you tie it back?
Sorry for the interjection late.
We could tie it, yes.
Yeah, maybe if you tie it back.
We'll give that a,
I'll
you know,
also note, oh, sorry, I forgot to trim ours back in the spring and then it got too late. And now ours is also quite big and flopping over. So it may be that next year, if you make sure you cut it down low enough, you won't have the same problem again. But I only know because I've made the error. I don't know if I've actually been able, well, if in the spring, we'll find out if that fixes the error.
okay, thank you.
Errors are learning opportunities also, as all gardeners know. This next question actually comes from Elizabeth, who was just telling us about that. I'm just going to say one sentence or two sentences of introduction. Our book club read, what is it, Back to Nature by Doug Tallamy. And Doug thinks that oaks are the best trees you could ever plant. Elizabeth apparently loved the book and is thinking about planting her own oak trees. So she has these questions. And I'm just going to say that much and turn the floor over to Elizabeth.
Sure. Hopefully I don't break up too much. So actually my first question was answered by some good people in the book club who directed me to oaks back behind the ball fields in Memorial Park. And so I went this weekend with my sons. We collected a bunch of acorns. We're not 100% sure about the species, but we think they're red oak, Quercus rubra, and perhaps white oak, Quercus alba. If anybody has insights on what species are in Memorial Park, we'd welcome those insights.
Can I ask a question of everybody? Do we suppose that those trees would be considered native trees?
I would imagine.
Whatever's in Memorial Park, would there be any reason that wouldn't be a native tree, whatever species it may be?
I think the only things that wouldn't be native might be up, you know, up closer to the entrance, but everything in the back, I have to think, has been there for quite a while. I seriously doubt if anyone, you know, purposely planted those trees.
To me, that's a strong recommendation for a local tree.
Yeah. No, I think we're going to plant these acorns regardless. But I was also just curious which species they are so that we know what we're dealing with. Some of them seem to like more moist environments. Others are easier to transplant than others. And so I think we're on a good track, but if anybody happened to know what species they were because they're oak aficionados, we'd welcome the insights, but otherwise I can just move on to the next question because we did make some progress with getting the acorns themselves.
Elizabeth, are they, when you're looking at the oaks that are there, the trees that are there, do they all look as if they are the same type of oak, or they look like they're different? In other words, if you just look at the, if you look at the bark and you look at the leaves, you could identify them. But of course, if there are several different types of trees in one grove, you're not going to know who's
Right.
or whose. So.
Yeah, I would go with that approach. I
That's
would,
exactly the issue.
yeah, I would go right, see if there's an acorn right under the bottom of the tree. And now the leaves are still on the tree, and you could there are different either apps or, I have a little book that could, identify, and there's a lot of types of oaks. And then, just right, looking at the leaves, the patterns, you should be able to identify what type of oak it is.
And the Orange County Master Gardeners, if you get pictures and send them to Orange County
right,
Master
pictures,
Gardeners,
yeah.
they would help you.
But yeah, I would do it soon before the leaves leave, then it's very hard to identify.
Yeah.
So I would just go pretty much, usually when squirrels are eating, they drop, they're usually not carried too far. So I would try to go to the tree that you find it right near, then that would be the best chance to identify it.
Yeah, and also if you want some, I believe, I'm not terrific at identifying oaks, but I think they are pin oaks, and I know they're very fast growing. If you want some of those, they are at Wayweyanda State Park, right by the bathhouse. They're along the path up to the bathhouse and bathrooms. And they're beautiful trees, and boy, did they grow fast. They put them in as saplings and they grew really fast, and they're lovely.
When did they put them in, Mary?
Oh, I don't know.
Great.
5 years
Thank
ago?
you all for the tips. Yeah, we did.
Oops, we lost you.
Oh, great.
Oh, no, you're back. And like, how big is your yard or area? Just to get an idea of how many oak trees you want to put in there.
We have 19 acres total.
Oh, you're good. You're okay.
So yeah, I have a few areas in mind where I'd like to plant per the book, probably 3 or 4 together in groups. It was recommended to do it this way, and it's actually how they're done at Memorial Park. It kind of has the appearance of one tree, but they're supposedly stronger because their roots intertwine when they're planted in these groves. So we're trying, what I noted was 2 different leaf types, one that was more pointed and one that was more rounded and lobed. We're hoping that we'll be able to tell which acorns, at least put them into groups, but I think if they're all intermixed, it will probably end up being fine too. So, but this is helpful. I will, I've made the note about the Wayweyanda for the pin oaks, and I appreciate all the tips. I think, has anybody ever tried to grow oaks from acorns in the past?
No, I have so many around me where I live already.
Yeah, you don't need to. Yeah.
There's apps, and I have this. I carry this little thing with me, Tree Finder, and it literally you could
cool.
it narrows down. It says, are the leaves pointy? Are they? And then you keep on eliminating and find stuff. But I'm sure probably on an iPhone there's probably an app that's 10 times better than this. Or as Michael said, you could send it to some master gardener, and they could definitely tell you. But I don't know. Has anyone started an oak from acorn?
Someone
Just
gave me
naturally.
an oak that they started from acorn in a small pot, but at the time I didn't have a place to put it, so I gave it to someone else who planted it. And when they gifted it, it was, in maybe a 6-inch pot and just a little, spindly something. But the friend who has it, it's doing beautifully.
Oh, great.
And growing quickly. Yeah.
It seems like a very good year
exciting.
for acorns. I mean, my driveway is covered with them.
Yeah, my wife is feeling them spiritually, so we're collecting them. I have acorns all over the house. I guess something's going on with oaks, maybe
That's
in the air.
So is it is it a mast year for the oak trees?
I've gotten
Is it a big...
that's
Go ahead, Elizabeth.
Sorry, I'm having connectivity issues. No, I heard you asking. I was just going to say, I think maybe it might be a mast year, but I'm getting notices that my internet connection is unstable, so I apologize.
There are also Doug Tallamy, one of his other books is on oaks, specifically on oaks. So you might want to check out that book as well. Okay, let's see. On to the next questions.
I'm almost at the end of it.
Oh, you are at the end of the second. Oh, good for you. Okay, Kate Schmidt is not here tonight, but she did have these questions. And this is maybe an answer to Marie's question. Kate Schmidt has a group of 4-Hers. I think they're 4-Hers, 4-H club that's up in Goshen. And they were hoping for extra catnip. I'm not exactly sure why they wanted that, maybe to sell tea or something. But also they're offering help to anyone who needs help closing up their garden, or if they know of somebody who needs any service projects done. Marie, if you need, let me know and I can make sure you get her email address directly.
That would be great. Thank you.
Okay. And she also is volunteering scouts to help out. They're also looking for service hours. And there's other people I've heard of who, there's the Orange County Audubon Society has somebody who maintains a garden somewhere, and apparently she goes out there and struggles with it by herself. And I was thinking we should be running it by our group if there are other people who want to give a hand with that. So next up is Leslie's Keyhole Garden, and Leslie sent along a few pictures, but I actually, I don't usually do this role. Other people have been doing it. The last time I did it, I had a couple of pictures from Leslie already. So I'm happy to show this is what her keyhole garden looked like in late April. And this is what it looked like in mid-June. And now here's a shot from more recently. This is today, right?
No, this is actually a month ago. I got a new computer in the spring because I got a new iPad, a new phone, but then they wouldn't talk to me to the old computer, so I got a new one. But I think the gremlins from the old desktop were transited to the new one. So it goes haywire. I had these lovely pictures of the peppers on the vine. And when I press send, it disappeared. There are a couple. But anyway, yeah, this is what it looks like now, this one. And, but the thing with the keyhole, it's hard to tell. It's the first time I tried it, but it has that composter section in the middle where you just keep putting in kitchen scraps. And I haven't had to water it much because it's rained so much. And I've put calcium down a little later than I usually do around the peppers. There are 3 pepper plants in this and 1 tomato. But it's been so prolific, and everything that's been in there is growing like mad, and it's still going strong. And I got we were talking the last meeting about not many sugar baby melons and not many cucumbers. I went out there a few days after that meeting. There were 3 cucumbers that had turned yellow. Like usually if you don't harvest them soon enough, they turn yellow, but they were actually very good. And I had 2 more melons. And that were tiny little things. They look kind of like, one looked like a bocce ball, the other was a little larger, but they were delicious. So I kind of like this idea of the keyhole garden where you just put all your kitchen scraps right in that center composter. And it seems that the roots of the plants just pull the nutrients out of the decomposing material, and it takes care of itself. Except for the extra calcium I put down for the peppers and tomatoes, I didn't do anything. And everything was just gorgeous. The fennel was abundant. The celery was a little spindly, but still very good. I don't know if I have any celery in that picture. There are a couple of, you see peppers, that was the end of them, the zucchini and the yellow squash. They did very well. And those are some collard greens, but everything just was, happy. And I didn't have squirrels this year. I was concerned. You can see the edge of that chicken wire cloche I put around the composter section. because I was concerned that squirrels might try and get into the composter, but no one bothered it. And
Well, they have all those acorns keeping them busy.
yeah, yeah. I haven't seen them much at all this summer, to be honest. They're usually everywhere. And the groundhogs haven't tried to get in this section. So it's been a good year.
May I ask, did you add any browns to that, or was it purely just your green kitchen scraps?
Oh, yes, sorry. I put in like 6 inches of the kitchen scraps, and then I have cardboard and paper that I put in also, and also coffee grounds. And so I fill it up, and every week it goes down at least 3/4 of the way. So I have to add more to it. And so it's first the kitchen scraps, then the brown material. And I didn't put any grass or leaves in it yet. Usually I do that in the fall, but it was just like effortless. I don't know how it will be next year if it doesn't rain as much, but it seems if I just keep watering it regularly, it should do well. And there's no bottom to that planter, so that any excess water just goes down into the ground. And so all of the plants, like on the outside of the fence there, they're all doing very well too, because I'm sure they're getting some of the nutrients coming from that composter. So it's been great.
Very good. I think that was the last picture.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, and the stuff was delicious. That's the best part.
Bill has a few pictures to share with us.
Okay, I thought this would be a good time to sort of look at the season and decide what things worked really well and what things are going to produce till frost, but also to look at what failed and maybe what needs to be done to help it get better for next year. So I just took some pictures of stuff that are currently in the garden today. And on the right is the sweet potatoes. There's a whole bed. It's one bed, but it's actually gone into the 2 walkways as well. It just covered the whole thing. I don't know what they're like or going to be like, because I haven't harvested any yet, but usually we get a really banner crop of sweet potatoes, and we usually find that nothing bothers them. And so if you're looking for a crop that probably requires little care and has big yields, I would recommend sweet potatoes.
Bill, oh, sorry.
Yeah, sure.
Have you ever planted Japanese yams?
No.
Okay, because I wanted to try those next summer, and I wondered if they would grow as well as your sweet potatoes.
Well, there's only one way to find out.
Yeah.
Do it.
Does anyone else besides us eat sweet potato greens?
No, I didn't.
I
know.
eat them.
Oh yeah, you can. And
Sauteed. Yeah.
yeah, you can saute them. They're a little bit, I'm going to say slimy, a little bit, but not a lot.
Mhm.
They're,
Did you eat them
they're,
raw, or you have to saute them?
I always saute them, but we don't eat it. We don't eat much raw stuff. So we're, my wife is from China, so we have a sort of everything's sort of cooked kind of style.
Raw, they're kind of terrible to my taste buds.
There you go.
Kind of terrible.
Yeah.
Okay, well, people can try it. We haven't tried it. I usually let the plants go close to frost, and so by the time I do that, the leaves don't look quite as good as they do right now. But I figure that the roots are getting the nutrients the longer I keep them going. The other thing, after you have close to a frost, that's the time to take them out. So you should just cut them off, cut the vines off and then dig them out. And what they recommend, and what I do, is I put them in my attached greenhouse for about a week, and I put some water in little pails around them and put a plastic top over them. And what this does is condition them so they last better over the winter. So I do that for about a week in my greenhouse, where they say to do it at temperatures 90 or 95. I probably hit temperatures higher than that in my greenhouse, but it seems to work. Yeah.
No, please, go ahead.
I was going to say, don't let the vines get a frost and leave the potatoes in with the vines on, because there's a bitter taste that comes from the leaves that goes into the potatoes if you leave them beyond the frost.
One question I wanted to ask you, I planted blue potatoes and red potatoes this spring, and they still have vibrant greens. And everything I read said, wait until the greens turn yellow before harvesting. So I'm thinking, okay, I mean, people in the farmers markets already, they've been selling potatoes for a long time already. Do you have any, blue or red potatoes? And do I really just keep waiting no matter how cold it gets until the greens turn yellow?
Yeah, I think you can. We harvested half of our potatoes because the vines died back. So we harvested them about a month ago. Okay. And we have other potatoes. They're not colored potatoes in the sense that they're not red or blue. They're just potatoes, and they're still growing. So we've left them in. And so I would presume as soon as the frost comes, that they're not going to survive too much more.
Okay.
Time to take them out.
Yeah, it depends on the kind of potatoes they are. There are early potatoes and mid-season and late potatoes. So, or you can take potatoes when they're smaller, or you can leave them in there and let them get bigger.
Right.
So, yeah, you can harvest potatoes in the summer.
I think
so even when they still have green tops.
Yeah, you can do it. Yeah.
I'm going to take some out and see what they look like, because I expect these are supposed to be, I thought, mid-season. So I expected them in August.
Yeah.
And we're now, a few days from October.
It sounds as if they're very healthy, but it's also been pretty warm. So what you can do is you can just reach in there and you can just pull out one or two without taking the whole plant.
Right.
See what they look like.
I'll do that tomorrow then. Yeah, thanks.
As we've discussed in the past, farmers and gardeners aren't the same species, right? So I would pretty sure if I were a farmer, I would plant a long row of potatoes, and then in the middle of the summer, I would start taking some to market. And then, but if you're a gardener, you want to maximize your crop, you want to leave it in as long as you can.
Right. Makes sense.
Big difference between the species.
And they've already flowered, right, Leslie?
I'm sorry?
They've already flowered, right?
Yeah.
What's this on the left, Bill?
Okay, this is pole beans, and I was going to recommend this variety for people. It's called Northeaster, one word, and it's pole bean, and this one comes from pine tree. The seeds come from pine tree. We found that this is a very great tasting bean. It is a survivor. The leaves are looking a little funny now, but it has plenty of beans, and you should plant about one plant per person if you want to have continuous beans for months. I mean, it really produces. So we did a mistake. We did 4 plants this year.
6.
No, 4. There's 4 down there, but 2 of them died. But
I pulled one out.
Oh, okay. That'll kill it. This is how we talk to each other. We wouldn't have known this unless we were here.
Well,
So,
I was afraid I was going to get overwhelmed by beans, and we did actually.
Yeah, we got a lot of beans, too many beans from 4 plants. And so, as I said, about 1 per person. And you can get meals almost for every night from the beans. And this variety is very good. You can also freeze it, and we have frozen it, and it tastes reasonably good frozen as well.
This is an Italian.
I will just second the vote on this particular variety of beans. We planted these for the first year in the community garden. We planted a whole packet, of course, and they're delicious. Everyone is wild about them. We put them in after the peas, so we had them for a late bean crop, and ours are almost finished up now, and they're huge. I mean, we've got a probably 10, 11 foot trellis, and they're like flopping off the top. But yes, excellent bean.
This is an Italian bean. It's the flat beans.
Exactly. Yes.
More flavorful than the regular string bean.
Oh, they're delicious. I got mine from High Mowing, but I mean, you can get them all, different places, but a keeper for sure.
Okay, I had other pictures sent. I don't know if you have them up.
This is the only other picture that I got from you, Bill.
Oh, I sent 5, but that's okay. This is the artichokes, the Jerusalem artichokes, and it's in flower right now. It's about 10 feet tall. And if you're looking for a prolific crop that never fails, the Jerusalem artichoke is it. And the thing that you have to do is make sure that it doesn't escape its bounds, because it gets huge and it will keep taking up more and more room each year. So after it dies back by late October, November, it's time to dig the roots, and you will get these tubers that are reasonable size. There's different sizes. And we use them directly in salads raw. Take off the skin and just cut them up. Or you can cook them like potatoes, or you can cook them other ways too, right?
Yeah, you can make soup out of them.
Make soup.
Yeah.
They're a multi-purpose type of crop. And again, I dig them up over the winter. I then mulch them. I put some leaves and hay over them about a foot and a half. And then I use that to store them over the winter. So whenever I need some, I'll go out with the pitchfork and just take the mulch off and dig up what I need, and so forth. It goes through most of the winter.
Again, I have to thank Bill, because he just gave me one a few years ago at a Sustainable Warwick meeting, and now I have just as many. As it's like prolific every year. So they're quite amazing, and as you can see, very pretty. But definitely have them contained. They will.
Yes, contain them.
Right.
I want to make one other recommendation. I had a picture of my small tomatoes, the
Sun gold.
sun gold. Yeah, all the other tomatoes look terrible. They're dying. The vines are dying. There may be some tomatoes on them, but they look terrible, of different types. But these cherry and other cherry tomatoes have died back. But the one that is growing like crazy and producing like crazy right now, after 16 inches of rain that we've had over the past couple of weeks, okay, is the sun gold. And I think that's a great variety to grow. They grow prolifically. They do split in the rain, but they just keep producing more after the rain. And they're sweet. And so if you have tomatoes out and you have a sun gold, as soon as somebody tries the sun gold, that's all they're going to eat. Okay, so there's no better recommendation than that.
They're the best.
Very good. Well, folks, the next thing up, I think, is my update is just that we are time to do the shimmy in place. So I want everyone to stand up, shimmy in place for a minute, and we'll be right back.
Okay, I can do that. Oh, I'm scared.
The question is if I can get up.
Yeah. What were you doing on the other side? Should I take this camera back upstairs?
I have to put it in the thing. I have to take it back.
I just don't like it sitting
I know.
out. Okay. I'm very happy with my room in there now, but I can't, I think I should put a primer on it, don't you think? Because I've just about scoured the paint off of it almost.
A timer?
A primer.
Oh, a primer.
Don't you think?
Maybe.
Probably. That was a good idea. Let's see. A little like vinegar, but okay. It's okay. It's all right. I have to clean the back of this too. Okay. The walls now because I got this sponge detritus all over them. Okay.
I wish we did this in other meetings. I'm usually so fried, and most of my other meetings are like at least 2 hours long. It makes a big difference.
I sometimes like to use animations in my PowerPoint. I had a little bit thought about trying to get some sort of image that would shimmy for the minute while we were shimmying. But I didn't. I'm glad I got the slides together today. I didn't get that. And it looks like we're mostly all back. A couple of people aren't here yet. So this is something we were just so thrilled with this happening this year.
Oh.
We planted hazelnut bushes 4 or 5 years ago, and this is the first year we had a crop. This is what the 2 bushes look like just before we harvested. This is a close-up of what a hazelnut looks like on a bush, and this is what we gathered. That's sort of a frisbee full. We have 2 bushes. This was the extent of the harvest from the smaller bush over here, and everything else was from the bigger bush. I happen to have, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I specifically saved this. I have here one of them. I'm going to hold it up to the camera. So that's what it looks like. Oh, let me do this. I'm going to, gosh, spotlight myself. I usually don't do that, right? Okay, so here we go. That's what it looks like.
Oh, look at that.
And it's got like this outer shell, and when it first comes off, you have to wait until the nut on itself isn't green, but it's brown, and then you pick it, and then you let it sit for a week, and the leaves turn brown, and then the hazelnuts, they sort of, there you go. There's one coming out just like that.
And
And
the cluster that looks like there are about 4 or 5 in that cluster.
exactly, yeah. There's the second one. And the strange thing about pulling these out of here is their outer wrappers. I'm sorry, you're not seeing that. Let me make sure I get the last one on camera.
Yeah, hold it up.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, so you see he's in there. You have to sort of pull that back, and it's a little bit attached to the root, and it comes out just like that. The strange thing about pulling these is, so I've just pulled 4 out of that cluster, right? There are my 4 hazelnuts, if you can see them. Oh gosh, there's my camera.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that.
And the thing is, the outer thing connects is a little bit tough. So it's like if you just feel, think, oh, I must have missed one. A little bit hard to describe, but the parts of there surrounding it, it's not a soft leaf. It really is a tough structure, like tough cartilage or whatever. We finished shelling all of our hazelnuts today, except for these last few. It made a bowl about this big when they were all done.
Wow.
So anyway.
Are they sweet?
Yeah, funny you should ask. I haven't tasted one yet.
Because usually hazelnuts are kind of sweet.
What we want to do
Well, not sugar sweet, but
is
yeah.
toast them a little bit first,
Oh,
and then crack the shells and eat them. So it's, toasting is a bit of a process, and so we haven't jumped to tasting them. Although I know I don't have a nutcracker here, although I would do that. So like I said, it took 4 or 5 years, very little maintenance in between. We had some Japanese beetles on one of these, but they didn't do a lot of damage. I pulled off a couple, but didn't do much, and they left the rest of it alone. I didn't even mow well around, as you can see. Sorry about that. So I just really think this is a bush with a lot of, I got my 2 original plants from Midsummer Farm, if I believe, if I remember correctly.
how tall are they? How tall do they grow?
That's about 5 feet tall. They grow about 5 feet tall and 5 feet wide.
That's a great size, manageable. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you don't have squirrels, or the squirrels didn't bother them?
This year we don't have that many squirrels. Now, we've talked about this in the past. There's something called a mast year, and the year after mast years, then maybe the squirrel populations are up. So
Yeah, because we have 2 bushes too, but one, we put them in at the same time. One of them is about 4 or 5 feet tall. The other one is about what, 1.5 feet
1.5
tall.
feet tall.
It just doesn't grow. So, and they do have to have 2 of them. So I don't know if we're going to, I haven't even checked out there to see. I don't think we have any nuts on
how
them.
old are they?
Oh,
No, they're about 4 or
they're
5
about
years
5
old.
years old
Yeah.
at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I heard someone say is, if it gets to the point where the nuts are so ripe that they're falling off and dropping on the ground, you're going to lose your entire crop to the squirrels. But if you check them and you see, oh, the nuts in there are green, that's too early. Once they're brown, okay, you go out and harvest.
Okay.
And they're, it takes a little bit to get them off. I suppose a squirrel has his tools to remove such items, but okay, let me share the screen again. And here's something else we're having success with this year. Luffa. Luffa. And we've got two kinds. One is like this, and that's about a foot long, but hard to see. And this one, you can see my hand, so you got the size, but it has that sort of striations. Is that what I want going up in? You know, my wife is from China. When she was young, she was sent to live with her grandparents out in the countryside, and her grandmother would tell her, okay, go pick a loofah, and she would pick it up and they would eat it for lunch. So a lot of people think of loofahs only for sponges. An immature loofah is a very interesting flavor. And so we've been eating most of ours. We're leaving a couple for sponges.
Like when you say interesting, what is that?
Yeah.
Interesting flavor. That's like when fixing someone up with someone, you say they have good personality.
It's not a particularly strong flavor. It's a nice texture. It's a little bit like, I don't know how to describe it. Just like that.
Cucumber? A
Let's see.
cucumber.
It's the texture is not as crispy as a cucumber. Yeah, less crispy than a cucumber. And the other thing is, you see, this is an 8x4 bed. This is another one here. This plant, it grew up, and there's no supports across there. It just grew across here, and it's going across this other 8x4 bed. It's actually gone off the end of that and into my asparagus plants. I mean, it's just really excited to be here and growing, which is my kind of plant.
This is an invasive species then.
And here's something else, bitter melon. And you can see, this is my deer fence here. So this height is here, the white clothesline with the prayer flags, that's like 7 feet. So that plant is standing 6 feet tall. And there's a bit of bowed fence. So it's not just growing up against the deer fence. I've noticed that there are vines outside the deer fence, and there's fruit outside the deer fence, and the deer are leaving them for us. So these are pretty, you can see the size of that relative to my hand. Those are relatively immature. They'll be about twice that size when they're fully ready. When you chop it up to cook it in your stir fry, that's what it looks like. It has a bitter flavor. It's deeply imbued with vitamins B, I, T, T, E, and R, which of course, a lot of people have challenged getting all those vitamins. So I highly recommend this food. You can get it in Chinatown if you don't have your own plant. And again, it's growing prolifically. There must be 2 or 3 dozen of the bitter melons growing on this plant.
How long did it
These
take
are both,
before you got, before it started to fruit?
Let's see. I want to say,
Sorry.
I don't know a good answer to that. I do want to say both this and the loofah, my wife was in charge of sprouting them and starting them. And actually she used the internet router and the warmth over the router to get the seeds to sprout. Yeah, and I'm pointing over there because that's where it is. I thought she started them really late. It wasn't like this was started early in the spring and it, and over the summer it finally evolved. She started like late. I'm going to say July sometime.
Oh, okay.
These are both annuals, right?
Yeah.
I've only had dried bitter melon that you then have to soak before putting in a stir fry.
You haven't been to the one markets in Chinatown. You can get this in Chinatown. In the Asian markets, a lot of them will have bitter melon.
I'll be there Wednesday. I'll look.
Michael, how many plants are in there? Is that just one or several?
I think there are 2 or 3 plants there. I will ask that and let you know.
That's like maybe 2 plants or something.
And this is actually growing in a spot where, remember, I've talked about a 3-fer in the past. So I had a composter here that we grew potatoes in one year. And then we've also done other things. So this soil was like a really friendly place for anybody to try to grow. And now, the big flop of the year. We should do this. We should ask everyone, what was your worst project of the year? Our strawberries were delicious in the spring. You can hardly see the strawberry plants in there for the weeds that got in there, and we just could not keep them back. And my question for the crew tonight is, what am I going to do?
Let the weeds grow back. I mean, die back. And then just put 'em out.
That grass is like a really invasive grass. It's got like a deep root under it. I'm thinking I maybe have to double dig the whole thing and just start over.
Oh.
Nicole is sort of saying something, but she's on mute. Maybe she's swearing. Sure.
No, I just said, wow, wouldn't, I mean, that's how long, and your strawberry patch has been there a long time, right?
Oh, 2-3 years. It's not that old.
You could dig it out, which is going to be hard, and separate the roots and replant the strawberry.
Yeah.
It's going to be a lot of work, but on the other hand, I don't know what else you could do to save the strawberries. And they
Yeah.
probably will be fine if you do it soon in the fall and keep it watered. Keep the strawberries after you put them in, keep them watered and healthy. And I think they'll be fine.
I just don't know if I can get all of that root out. Or maybe I a little bit think of letting this, digging it deep and letting it go fallow for the next year, and trying to really, be aggressive about getting the weed out then.
I'm refurbishing my iris bed because they're rhizomes and they get very thick, and the grass got away in there. And I've done iris beds before. It's the same type of thing where I dig up big clumps of it. And if you do it after it rains, or you keep it moist, say you put it down in water, tubs of water, and soak them, then you can, separate the plant from the grass. But it is a lot of work. It can be done.
I started putting my strawberry plants in pots, and they overwinter fine because I had a problem with grass getting in, but the grass I had, I could just wait till it yellowed and died back and yank it out. And I could separate it. But after a couple of years of that, I just dug the stuff up and put it in pots. And I don't touch it all winter. It gets snowed on, freezing temperatures. And then in the spring, I get strawberries again.
Okay, pots. Gosh, I've got a lot of pots around.
Yeah. And then the
Maybe that's what
grasses don't bother you. And that's just like, I just began to feel like this is unnecessary work.
Okay. Well, let's see. At this point, we're on to announcements. We're pretty early to be doing the announcements. Does anybody have any other questions that we should be answering before we go to announcements?
I at the end of last meeting, we were discussing cover crops
Oh, right.
and what everybody's plans were for the fall, going into the winter. I definitely would love to talk about that next time if we can. I don't know if anybody else is interested in that.
No, yeah, we did say we're gonna talk about that, and like how we wrap up our garden. Do people leave stuff in? Do you cover and leave? Do you put cover crop? So I don't know if we want to say that for next time. We'll share if anyone wants to share that what they do to their garden at the end of the season.
Okay.
Sarah, what do you do with the community garden?
We, there's a few things I put egg cloth over. Like I put in a late bunch of kale and spinach. They're only about 3 or 4 inches high now. So those will all get covered with cloth. And the Swiss chard, you won't make it through the winter, but I'll cover it and people can keep harvesting that, into December. And by December, whatever's there stays there until the spring. Everything else gets cleaned up.
Mm.
And do you leave it bare? Do you cover it with like rye or vetch or leaves or anything? No, just leave the soil.
Just leave the soil. In the spring, I've planted cover crop. Like I put cover crop on a tomato bed last year because I wanted to use the same bed, and it worked. I might do it again this year because there's a bed that is in the right position with the sun and everything. And that one I put cover crop on. We got a good crop of tomatoes out of there.
What
I mean,
did
we
you
do.
use? I'm sorry. What did you use? What type of plant as your cover crop?
I bought a mix. I bought a spring cover crop mix from probably Johnny's. You can buy a spring mix or a fall mix.
Right, okay.
Of course, the challenge in our garden was we have people who love the weed. And I had to keep going there going, no, no, don't weed that, don't weed that.
And now when the spring ends, do you just leave it there? Do you cut it down and leave it down, or do you pull it
No,
up?
you-
Like, what do you do?
No, when you're ready to, I would only put that on something that you plant later, like peppers or tomatoes. So you put it in early in the spring, so it doesn't get all that big. Actually, like a pretty good size, but the idea is to till it in. You don't cut it off, you till it in. It's like green manure.
Mhm.
Then I got the herb bed kind of cleaned up. It always turns into a wild and woolly mess, kind of like Michael's strawberry bed. It's the thing I'm always going to fix and never have time to. But that has a lot of plants there, mints and wild oreganos and herbs that I fight to keep, because that's really, all that mint that drives people crazy, that's really a pollinator garden. So that, it's trimmed down somewhat because it's out of control, but that's more of a left, so some native bees and insects can overwinter in there. I mean, we have rhubarb. What else do we have? Mostly we clean it up.
Okay.
What about you, Bill?
Well, I grow things whenever I can grow them, as long as I can grow them. So what's going to happen is we're going to get some frost. Some things will die back. If they're not diseased, I will just plant them where they are. I mean, they've been in that spot already. So I figured, well, I'll just put them back down there, let them decay over the winter. And that's my cover crop.
I'd like to actually try some cover crops. We don't do it. We usually clean the beds out pretty well, unless there's something growing there, and just leave them. But we've heard that that's not a good thing to do. So I would like to try some cover crops. The problem that we've had with cover crops before, we once a long time ago planted some ryegrass. It was supposed to be the kind that would die back. It didn't die back. So in the spring we had all this grass, okay, which we had to then weed out or turn on or do something with. So
I used to cover my beds with a lot of leaves, dry leaves, and kind of crush them up a little bit. And I just lay them on the bed. Makes them feel safe, like a little blanket. But I don't know if that's the right thing to do, but I do that.
I mean, one reason we come, pretty much clean up is it's good size, and you've got the squash bugs, the squash borers. There's like little bugs that live in there, and by getting rid of all that plant debris, hopefully we're getting rid of some of that. We have a little area we set up for the day-by-day weeds, but all the big stuff, we're lucky, we take it outside the garden and the DPW will come and make it vanish for us. Because it's a massive pile.
That sounded like a real mafia type of they'll just make it go away.
Yeah.
Well, so I do a deep mulch in my garden, and I use the hay in there. So last year what I did was I removed all of anything that was dead at the end of the season. I ended up giving it to the chickens, and I left the hay there. And I didn't plant a cover crop, but I thought about putting something in to try to replenish that soil just kind of naturally. And I had seen things about rye and clover and different mixes and things. And I'm just always trying to figure out, I guess, the least invasive way of me tending to the soil, right? And just kind of letting it do its own thing and replenish on its own without me having to go in and till and kind of screw up all that microorganisms and biology and everything that's living under the surface on its own.
Isn't that what mulch is supposed to do? The mulch
Yeah,
keeps the soil covered and keeps it moist enough so it all the critters who are down there makes them happy, and
right. And
they can bottom. They can. Is it bottom feeding if they pile up through the dirt and eat the bottom of the straw? Is that considered bottom feeding? I'm not sure.
It makes sense to me that it would be.
Well, another problem we had is we used to put some piles of leaves on the beds. And we found that the voles just loved that. So we decided that was not a good idea.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I mean, what I did this year, I had added to, I didn't really till much in. I just kind of raked around and it worked out well. Any of the hay straw that was still there, I moved over a bit and then I just added some compost and some manure to it, to try to replenish the soil that way. I'll use CalMag later in the season, around my peppers and stuff for a little bit of a boost. I love my fish emulsion and the kelp, but it's always about the soil health, right? I'm trying to just figure out the best way to maintain healthy soil to get the beautiful produce that we're able to pull. So thank you for your suggestions.
So we're at 8:30. I just want to finish up the announcements and then. So the next fascinating episode of the Zoom Garden Plot will be Monday, October 11th. We're the second and fourth Mondays of the month at 7:30. I think we'll meet twice in October, and then for the rest of, and then until the March, well, I think we'll just meet the second Monday of the month. My crystal ball not being 100% accurate all the time about these things. On Monday, October 18th at 8 p.m., Bill and Maria and I and Elizabeth, who was here earlier, will be doing a presentation, a webinar on climate change, meaningful solutions at home and in your community. A lot of times these presentations, they just tell you to insulate your house and change your light bulbs. Of course, we do that too, but beyond that, there's also what you can do in your yard and what you can do with your food choices. And so that'll all be included in our webinar. I'm going to pop into the chat. But by the way, I have a question. Can everyone see the chat box on the screen now? You can? Oh, I didn't know if you could see that when I was doing that. Okay. I think that will take you to the sign up form to register for the webinar. And then there's a new project that maybe I'm pretty sure this is going to launch. There's something called Pollinator Pathway, and other towns, many towns in New York have done this, at least a dozen or 15. And basically what you try to do is get enough private properties and parks and so forth to get there to be pollinator friendly enough to be able to say that you have a certain density that your town has become a pollinator pathway. It's a little bit like becoming a tree town, I think. But they have other standards for what makes a pollinator pathway. If you are interested in participating in a project with this, and so far Sustainable Warwick we're going to get involved. The Orange County Audubon Society is going to get involved. Local Greenwood Lake will be involved. We might be talking to town parks about making pollinator friendly sections of parks, also helping homeowners make their yards pollinator friendly. If you're at all interested in being involved in this project, please, you can contact me and I will get you in contact with the movers and shakers behind that project. And our last announcement for the night, Marie is still here. So this Sunday from 2 to 3 p.m., it's co-hosted by the Woodbury Public Library and the Florida Public Library, but it's actually being held in Woodbury. And it's called Growing Beautiful Food. And I've got the flyer right here. And Marie, do you want to tell us anything more about this?
It's just, this gentleman has created an absolute, if you look on the internet at Stonegate Farm, it's an absolutely beautiful farm in Newburgh. It's near Mount St. Mary campus. And Matthew Benson will be at the Woodbury Library to talk about all different ways of gardening, but he is very organic gardening. And so I thought, it might be something that you gardeners would be interested in, taking a road trip and going over to Woodbury and meeting Matthew and just hearing what he has to say about his experience with growing different varieties in Newburgh, which, if something works in the Newburgh area, it's very possible it would also work in Warwick or Florida, because it's not, they're local.
Very good. Very good.
And the registration, just one last thing, the registration is either on the Woodbury Library page, or you can definitely call and register. It's just that there have to be enough seats for everyone. And I think she's got about 12 people now, and she can probably take about 10 or so more. So.
Very good. Very good. Thank you for sharing this with us.
You're welcome.
And if anyone goes, please give us the notes and let us know how it went. And that, folks, rounds up this version of the Zoom garden plot. Thank you all for joining us.